Welcome back to Real Talk, the show where we sit down with real investors, doing real deals, and find out what's actually happening in today's market. Today, I got joined by Bill Fischer from SB Wholesaling in the chair. Now, here's why this conversation is going to matter a lot more. Bill is one of the top clients inside Closer Control, and that title means something because we don't just hand it out to everybody. You earn it by actually producing it. Now, for Bill, for those who do not know much about you yet, can you give us a quick rundown about who you are and where you're operating?
Yeah, right now, a quick background for me is I've been investing in real estate since 2005. I specialized in buying single-family homes throughout the country, and just evolved into last year where I came across wholesaling and Brett Daniels' TTP program, and it caught my interest. And I thought, hey, I really would like to start my own business. I mean, I have a family business I've been operating since 1994. Made a lot of people a lot of money, and I thought, well, I'd like to be successful and do something myself. So like I said, I've been investing in single family homes since 2005 throughout the country, but then last year when this opportunity came up, I started to get into wholesaling. It's a learn by fire. It's you have to go through it, and mistakes are good. I mean, a lot of people look at failures and they get turned off by it, and that's why the weak wholesalers probably don't survive in the industry. You have to be strong-minded, and failures I always look at as a way of getting better. Mm-hmm. So various things that I tried were cold calling. I tried various things like driver dollars. I used other platforms. I used other coaching programs, and I just kind of cherry picked from each thing and made it my own. So, right off the bat, if you're going to get into wholesaling, you have to run it like a business. You can't run this as if you're just learning some business and thinking you're going to fly by the seat of your pants. You're not. So what I mean by that is you have to first start off with getting an LLC done. Well, where do you go that? Well, you can go to www.busy.com and get an LLC form. That's crucial from the start. Once you get that form, then you also have to open up a banking account, right? You don't want checks coming in and going into your personal account. You have to have an LLC set up, and then you have to set it up with a bank. So I did that with busy.com, and then started up a business account with Bank of America. From there, then also I researched on where to go for accounting. Right, it was bookkeepers.com. A gentleman named Greg Shurek out of Minnesota. And he specializes in wholesaling and real estate investing. So it's extremely important to dial it in, not only to find an accountant, but to find an accountant that specializes in your particular business. Because if you don't file your taxes properly, you're not accounting for your sales, your debits, your credits, and your financial statements, you're not running a successful business. So nice. able to do that right off the bat and set the groundwork to be successful. From there, then you have marketing, right? Well, what's the best way of marketing? Well, I found cold calling to be a good way of doing it to start off with. However, cold calling, the leads that we found were not very solid. They were people that aren't just distressed sellers, people that want to sell their home for full retail price. And like I said, trial by error, I found that, hey, look, I got a few sales in and was able to start the business up and run it self-sufficient on its own. But to keep it going long term, I started gravitating towards YouTube and Google PPC for distressed selling leads. Why did I do that? Well, these people are looking for you to buy their house versus cold calling. You're calling them with the hopes of them selling, but they're going to sell for retail. And when you're in wholesaling, you're not going to make the assignment fees you need to do by traditionally selling a house. So another very important thing is that you need to find a team in place. I virtually work Oklahoma City area, and I have a team in place with a realtor that specializes in novations. I have a transaction coordinator, and I have a title company. So it's a well-run system that I have in place that once I get the lead in, I'm able to qualify it with boots on the ground and then do comps in the area and submit 3 ways of submitting an offer: a cash
Mhm.
offer, which is about 60% the comp value of a home. Another way is what we're calling equity protection program or a novation. And that's basically about 75 to 80% the value of the home. But the great part about the novation is that you don't have to pay for repairs out of pocket. And a lot of sellers, they don't have the money or the funds right now. You can see the national debt. A lot of people are tied up in credit card debt. So having it where you can, they don't have to come out of pocket with repairs, and it's basically 75, 80%. They don't have to pay for commission costs, closing costs, and you can sell to an investor list because you're getting the house at a discounted price. It opens up two ways of selling your house, which is either on the MLS or selling to an investor base.
Mhm.
So that makes this option the best option, I think. And for wholesalers, it's where you have the biggest sweet spot to make the biggest assignment fees. And then the other way is selling it traditionally. You don't make money off it, but if you're going to work with a realtor locally, they need to be making their money. So if you come across leads like I do, I pass it along to my realtor, and he listed traditionally, uh, and he gets his full boat of commission. So we have a nice working relationship going. So I hope I've answered a bunch of your questions to start
Yeah.
off this conversation.
Yeah, I think you answered like a lot of the questions which I had in mind, and it seems like you come with a ton of experience, especially in the same real estate space. Now, for your current operation, like how big is your team size? Like, are
Great.
you two, three guys, or maybe like you have like a whole operation based out of US also?
Yeah, so that's another great question too. So through trial and error, I actually, like I said, I have to tell you my mistakes first because wholesalers aren't going to learn. And if I can streamline the hurt process basically of learning, um, you can go to Egypt, you can go to the Philippines. However, what I found to be the best way of hiring out of country employees is through a company called Global Ties, and they specialize in Latin America. Why do I like Latin America the best? One, it's the same time zone. Work in the same time zone. I just got off a call. I have an administration executive assistant, Rebecca Chavez, that works in El Salvador. Awesome. She grew up learning the Western ways of speaking and hardly any accent. And that's very crucial, especially in the marketplace I'm working. Because if you have an accent, then you come across as being a scam almost. So
Hmm.
having someone that you hire on that can talk to sellers that have hardly any accent is extremely important. So that's another reason why I find working with Central America. Also, they're college educated, and uh, they're bilingual. They speak Spanish, they speak English, which is very important in the U.S. market in real estate. So it gives me a competitive advantage. So I highly recommend working with an admin team or a sales team in the Central America area. I have one executive assistant. I'm in the process of hiring a acquisitions manager right now as I'm scaling my business, with the idea of that person making 80 to 100 calls a day and booking. You can do a reverse engineering, right? You want to have 25 leads per week. If you get 10 bookings out of that or appointments, you go, and then you get two contracts, and then the assignment fee can average between 28 to 35,000. You can do the numbers on that, right? And that's what you need to do is you need to come up with what your sales number is. You know what your expenses are, you know what your labor is, and then your bottom line cash flow, and that's how you run a business.
Nice. So you have like an assistant based out of El Salvador, and you're in the process of hiring another acquisition manager. So,
Yes, and I have a team in place that I deal with as an agent in Oklahoma, the transaction coordinator, and the title company. So I have a team of about six right now that's working for me.
amazing. Now, let's talk about deals because obviously I know that you're one of the top players in closer control. So obviously that means you're producing a ton. So are you playing right now in smaller markets, or are you doing nationwide deals? Just a local, or are you going nationwide right now?
Right now, I'm specialized in the Oklahoma area. Why? Because I want to dominate the area, right? I
Hmm.
have also an SEO website through Grumpy here, which it's going to be kicking in probably 6 to 12 months because the Google Analytics need to kick in. Once that kicks in, I'm going to have another lead pipeline coming into me. And I want to specialize in Oklahoma, dial that in with the marketing, the team in place. And then once you dominate a market, then the idea is to go nationwide. But I would say focus on a particular market population between 400,000 and a million people. That's always seems to be a good number. And then you're looking for probably home sale prices in the $100,000 to $400,000 range. That's kind of the sweet spot to work off of. That works best when novations. You get below that number of 100,000, the spread on the sales number is not big enough to make it. And then when you get above 400,000, you can get into a lot of complicated situations when you're going through the closing cost process. So that seems to be the sweet spot, which is about 400,000 to a million population, and then having average home sales prices of about 100,000 to $400,000.
So, so these are the couple of points which you need to look into, especially when you're trying to enter a market, right? Based on your experience.
Yeah, and do research too. You don't have to go. You try to find a market that's not as competitive. Like I went to a marketplace where, when you're in New York City and California, a lot of people are wholesaling in those particular markets. So your average spend for marketing and average lead price is going to be a lot more because you're dealing with a lot more competition. So find a market that is not as heavily saturated with wholesalers and just dominate it.
Nice. And you mentioned that you're recently trying to set up a new marketing channel where you're trying to explore Google Ads or Google SEO.
Yeah, so I've circled back with Brent Daniels. They were a coaching program, and then they approached me with an opportunity of doing Google PPC, and they came up with a way that's doing it. It's much more affordable than they originally had done it. So Google Analytics, once again, you have probably a window of 90 to 180 days before the algorithm kicks in. So it's not a get rich scheme right away. You have to be patient. You have to work it. And by what you need to do is you need to update the Google PPC with where the information is coming from, so the algorithm then improves. So that way you have a particular area for, like I said, I work a particular area of Oklahoma City. I don't want to have it where it's in rural areas outside of the areas I'm working, because I don't have the team in place to dispo it. And you're dealing with homes that, could be a farm in the middle of nowhere. So you want to really dial it into the particular area you're working with. And Google algorithm, you have to do a Google sheet and you have to keep updating it. For instance, we got a lead off of YouTube. That's another avenue of marketing I'm doing. We just put a deal under contract here today. And it's going to be probably about a $20,000 assignment fee. The home I already got a seller to buy it for $129,900. The seller agreed to buy it for $100,000, so I'm going to make $20,000 assignment fee off it. But I got the lead through YouTube, and I had to dial in with the Google sheet the information, and then Google starts dialing in for the way that people search your advertising pieces. So you want to really use Google and YouTube to its fullest potential.
Nice. And since you've been utilizing these channels for quite some time, would you know like how much would you have to spend, like maybe a ballpark range, just to see some actual results?
Yeah.
And
So
also the timeline too, and also the timeline when you can see a return on the investment back.
Yeah, it depends the marketplace you work, but if you do off with the parameters I set, you look in 90 to 180 days. And what my spend was with the TTP program was $7,500 up front. And then it's going to be $1,500 ongoing after that. That's through the Brent Daniels program, and then about an average spend of about $3,000 in marketing per month. On top of that, once I start getting more deals in, I'm going to start reinvesting back in the Google PPC and doing probably between $5,000 to $10,000 a month. The more money you put in, obviously, more targeted it can be. So YouTube, I use a company called ROAS, and I spend $4,000 up front, and then same thing, about a $3,000 a month marketing fee with Google.
Nice. And I know you do wholesaling, but do you also do like novations, flips, buy and hold, rentals, anything like that on top of it? Or
that's an excellent question. And the reason why that's an excellent question is because with the money you get in, you want to have a certain number each month, right? If I gave you the numbers to hit of $25,000 to $35,000 assignment fees, and you're closing 5 to 10 contracts per month, you could be between $70,000 and $125,000 a month in your sales and cash flow. Obviously, you have your expenses. But what's left over, what I plan on doing moving forward here now, because I've done this in the past, is buying single family homes. I have a company that finds particular areas. I'm looking to buy homes in the Cleveland area, and why? Because the home values are between 100 and 150,000. The down payments between 30 to 45,000, that range. You get a 30-year mortgage, and then you can pay it off quickly. But reinvest those funds into other investments. Why? Because now it's going to create passive income for me. And the
Mm-hmm.
best thing on earth is passive income. Real estate is the only investment that you can appreciate in value and also depreciate from a tax person's standpoint. Real estate is the best investment that is in the face of the earth.
Amazing. I think that's not just real estate advice, but thanks for the financial advice as well. Obviously, passive income is one of the best ways to go. And I think that's one thing I notice with, especially when it comes to a lot of guys who get into wholesaling, right? I mean, wholesaling can get you the initial cash flowing, but then again, a lot of guys, they end up going into rental properties, the buy and flip, and also the novation side so that they can keep increasing their portfolio. Now, I know that you run a six-man operation or coming close to running a six-man operation. So obviously, on top of that, you are maintaining the high-level consistency across your entire team, right? Now, a question as a CEO of your company, how do you identify top A players and how do you keep them accountable and also at the same time happy with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I learned as a kid. I mean, I played sports and I was always a team leader. So I applied what I learned in sports and the competitiveness and applied it to my everyday job. I mean, you have to treat people well.
Mhm.
People like to come up with ideas, right? If you're not challenging your employees to be the best version of themselves, you're never going to get the best out of your employees. And that's something I've done well through the years. So like right now, I went through the interview process and I can identify people right away. And when you interview people, what I hate about when you see on a resume is people that put, oh, I worked somewhere for 6 months. I worked somewhere for a year. I like to see longevity. And when you see longevity, you know that you can invest in that person. They're going to stay with you long term. If you see high turnover, you're just going to train them for another job. So you want to make sure that you're hiring people that show on their resume long-term leadership and they show long-term employment. And based upon that, those are the people I want to hire because I'm going to invest in them. I'm going to teach them everything I know. And if you have people that are staying on with you a long time, you can evolve with you. You can train them. You can grow them. You can challenge them to become the best version of themselves. And then they can learn what you're doing. And then you can help them actually become an investor themselves or doing something. So that's my goal is not only to bring my team on place, I want to make my teammates successful.
Amazing. That's an amazing answer. Now, apart from the team, let's move a little bit more into the speed and also the buyer side. So, for one of the things which I want to know is how relationship heavy is your buyer network? Like, are you always working with the same core group or are you constantly adding more buyers into your network?
Right now, I rely on my partner in Oklahoma. He has a extensive buy list. So when I get a house that and like I said, we transition. I like doing novations better because the assignment fees are bigger. He has an extensive buyer list, and we're able to hit that list. And once the buyers know that we have these home available, they know who they're dealing with, right? They're not dealing with someone else off the street. They know if we're going to bring them a deal, they're going to move on the house really quickly. Like that house I told you that I have today that's under assignment. We got it a couple days ago and we found a buyer immediately for it. So that's something that we can promote ourselves and saying, hey, look, future seller, we have an extensive buyer list and we can move the homes in a certain amount of time frame. And that's important to a lot of people today because they may have a job out of state, they're going through a divorce, they've inherited a property. They may not want to hold it, they want to get the funds in their hands. So our job is to move the homes as quickly as possible. So having a buyer list is extremely important. And right now I rely on Brandon, my partner in Oklahoma. But what I'm also going to be doing is going nationwide. So I'm going to be doing the same thing as saying, hey, look, future buyers of my property, this is what I had to offer. So I'm going to build that team as well. So everything about doing wholesaling is building your team out and
Hmm.
finding an all-star cast of people. And your reputation is everything. I'm old school. I like to do a handshake deal. I like talking to people in person. So if you come across as honest and you can deliver, you're going to be successful.
Nice. Now, this is going to be a hypothetical question. Okay. So let's say if you're dropped into a brand new market tomorrow with no contacts, how do you build a serious buyer pool fast?
You can go out there and Google it, right? Um, there's companies out there that specialize in buyers lists. So there's one company that's about $2,300. I forget it off the top of my head, and they can help you with a buyers list nationwide. You can start there, or what I like is doing research in a particular area, right? Find an investor in your area. You can go on Facebook, and you can go on there and find out a particular area and get in touch with investors in a particular area and work off of there. That's probably the best way to do it, is to go into a particular area. You can either talk to realtors, you can talk to Facebook, and go through there in the marketplace and find contacts in a certain space.
Nice. So I know you're giving us a ton of value, but one of the things or one of the questions which I have on the top of my head is you've been doing deals, or you say you've been in this space for quite some time, and you were one of the early clients using closure control as well. Now, where exactly does closure control situate in your entire operation? Can you give us a small breakdown on that side?
Yeah, closer control. I mean, you don't want to be having post-it notes, right? Where you're writing down people's information. The fact that you can put in a lead source, like for instance, I had a cold calling company and you set it up with the CRM. So it immediately it populates into your CRM, and it's easy to search. There's just so many features with inside of closer control that keeps you organized. If you're disorganized, you write on a piece of paper, and then all of a sudden people call you out of the blue, you don't know where that information is, or you can't effectively jump on it. Because in this industry, timing is everything, right? They have it set up with high level, and go high level, you get a phone call coming in that says bing, bing, it rings on your phone, go high levels coming in. And either it can be AI generated or it's coming from one of your direct leads. And you want to answer the phone. And once you're done, you can see the notes on the particular call you had, so they can prove your calling and how you're answering. You can analyze yourself. That's extremely important. And then you can put notes into closure control afterwards, how it went. You can say if they've got a disposition list of, are they interested, not interested, they sign elsewhere, do I need to contact them like in 2 or 3 months on the calendar? It just completely keeps you so organized and focused on your business. If you don't have a good CRM system, you're just flying blind.
Thank you. Well, it's glad to see that closure control is really able to help you scale your operation at the same time, making sure that everybody is kept accountable. Now, one last question before we end the show. So, Bill, let's say for someone starting from zero, no buyers list, no systems, no reputation or brand name, what do you build first and why?
Simple. You have to build the infrastructure first. You go to busy.com, you get your LLC started. You choose a bank. You can do a local bank. I've done Bank of America. You need to get a CRM system in place right away. Uh, call Connor Roca, call him up and get set up with your CRM system. You also need to have your accounting set up, and that's where I mentioned earlier, reibookkeeping.com is extremely important. If you don't build your structure first, you're not going to be successful. From there, hiring an admin person off the bat is probably very important. I use a company called Global Ties, as I talked about earlier in the call. They're out of Central Latin America. So doing that stuff right there, and then also identifying a 400,000 to a million population city, 100,000 to 400,000 in sales price for the homes, you're dialed in right there. I mean, I just cut down probably headaches for you of trying to go out and search with coaching and everything else. Cold calling, you can do cold calling, but companies like Call Geeks, but I didn't find long-term success with that because you're selling to people that don't necessarily need to sell their home, and you want to find distressed sellers. How do you find that? Well, that's through Google PPC, that's through YouTube, that's through SEO website. So that basically, you need to put the infrastructure in place like that, and hopefully that answers that question.
Well, it certainly did. Well, Bill, I appreciate you for being straight with us today. What I keep coming back to this is the top performers. What I realize is they aren't just waiting for the right moment or the right market. They build the structure that actually makes the moment happen, right? So Obviously, you guys know your numbers, you know the buyers, and also the top performers. They know what a deal should look like before they even get on the phone. Now, that's systems and discipline which has been built over a number of years. Now, guys, if you're watching this and if you feel like things are not working out, let's say if your team is feeling scattered or you still feel like you're just winging notes, take notes from this podcast. Now, not just on the wins Bill talked about, but also the standards, the systems, and also the way he thinks about the output. Now, so that's what actually separates real operators from people who are just talking about getting started. Bill Fischer, SB Wholesaling, thank you so much for being part of the show with us today. Bill, any final words before we end the podcast?
No, I appreciate the call, and hopefully I answered a lot of questions and been straightforward, and just be organized and put your infrastructure in and ask questions, and hopefully I've pointed you in the right direction to start off and cut down on the hardship that you might experience in the beginning of being a wholesaler, and wish you the best.
Well, thank you so much for that advice, Will. Guys, tune in next week where we're going to coming up with new guests, new stories, and new updates. That's it for Real Talk, guys. See you soon.